Welcome to Cargo Shorts, brought to you by Old Dominion Freight Line. I'm your host, Samantha Jones. The concept of must-arrive-by dates has become a cornerstone for retailers and supply chains alike. Born out of the need for efficiency and precision, must-arrive-by dates, or MABDs, mandate that freight must be delivered within highly specific time windows. Initially implemented by big box retailers, pharmacies, hospitals, and grocery stores have all seen significant adoption of the practice as well. While MABDs help streamline staffing and inventory management, they also impose strict penalties for noncompliance, presenting significant challenges for shippers. Understanding and navigating these requirements is essential for anyone involved in the movement of goods today. To talk more about the evolution of must-arrive-by dates, I'm joined by two subject matter experts, Greg Plemmons, Chief Operating Officer of Old Dominion Freight Line, and Chris Kelley, Senior Vice President of Operations of Old Dominion Freight Line. Greg, Chris, it's great to have you on today. How are you guys doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having us.
Excellent. Great to be here, Samantha.
Well, absolutely. Thanks for letting me host this conversation. I'm looking forward to it. It's a trip down memory lane for me. So anytime I get to talk about LTL these days, it's exciting. I have a couple of questions I want to ask you guys today, if it's okay, but really excited to talk more about the concept of MABD dates, not because it's just that exciting to everyone, I think, but because it's something that we have seen continue to gain traction and evolve and just become a topic that nobody can avoid if you're involved in retail supply chain these days. So for anyone who maybe doesn't really have a lot of background or experience yet with MABDs, I just want to kind of set the stage for the rest of our discussion today. Greg, would you kind of give me some of your thoughts on what are MABDs? How did they come about? What have we seen going on in the last few years? And just kind of help us stage set a little bit.
Sure. You're right. It's a concept that has gained tremendous traction. I think we'll continue to do that for a while. MABD is short for must arrive by date, and that different retailers have different names for MABD, but essentially it's any shipment that is required to deliver within a certain window. It arose, I guess it really began with Walmart. I was kind of the pioneer of the concept. They use the term OTIF, or on time in full, but essentially they were the ones that began associating scorecards and penalties for noncompliance with the delivery windows that they set for their vendors. And it's just a way for them to manage their inventory. Obviously, they have massive inventory at any given time, and so it's a way for them to manage that inventory, keeping inventory levels as low as possible, scheduling their carriers to deliver. But it's grown from its beginnings with Walmart to really right across the retail spectrum. Pharmacy vendors, grocery vendors, even the medical industry and others are now involved with MABD.
Sure. And I think it's kind of, it follows the trend where I always say that shippers have the opportunity to kind of start trends and drive compliance within trends as well. And so they're the companies that are moving goods. They own the supply chains, right? And as suppliers or vendors into those larger retailers, we try to do our best to evolve and innovate and comply. So I think shippers do a great job of educating themselves to learn what is expected of them by their retail vendors. I think maybe it's a little harder for them to understand what is going on behind the scenes with their chosen carrier partners, because that's not always something that is discussed very openly. So, Chris, I was wondering if you could kind of walk me through operationally, what are things carriers do when they pick up an MABD shipment, and what is that journey of that shipment and the various touch points along the way before it makes it to its retail destination?
Sure, Samantha. The operational standpoint, a normal LTL shipment and an MABD shipment, from a travel standpoint, from a network standpoint, there's really not a tremendous difference. Physically, the freight's going to move in the same paths. It's going to go to the same places. It's the technology behind it. It's the planning behind it, the pre-planning of what is the delivery window. And each one of these is different, whether pick your big box retailer or your grocery chain, or even some locations and different DCs within the same company. They all can have different, while the overall program is the same, it must arrive in a certain window. There are different requirements for how that appointment is set, what time to arrive, what the procedures are. So it's really knowing what that consignee needs in order for that MABD shipment to be successful upon delivery. But that's really the major difference between an MABD type shipment and a regular LTL shipment is that delivery piece. Are you delivering it within that window and according to the specifications of that particular location? So we have a team when shipments are billed. We obviously have unique identifiers. We have an entire program built around various levels of compliance. There's not a one-size-fits-all type service for this. So it depends on which service you've chosen, kind of what level of follow-up goes with that. And that's just due to the different complexities of different consignees. So once it gets in that system, then we work through that based upon what level of service is selected and what those requirements are to make sure that we're reaching out and working with the consignee, whether it's delivery portal, whether it's an online delivery schedule. Some are old fashioned. You still do call and talk to somebody and set up times to swap trailers or drop a trailer, depending on the arrangement that we have.
So the shipment is still going to travel like a normal shipment would, but then the trick is because MABD is all about on time, not early and not late. It's how they respond at that delivering facility to ensure that they're being perfectly compliant with that strict delivery time frame.
Yep, that's correct.
Greg, what do you think shippers need to be considering when they're selecting their transportation partners who are moving these shipments that have these MABDs and require the appointments and the strict arrival times?
You know, Samantha, in order to grow their business with retailers, shippers really must receive good scorecards, right? And every vendor is rated on their performance in several key areas. So they not only have to provide a quality product at a fair price, they also must deliver to the retailer within a specified window and in perfect condition. And that's where the importance of partnering with quality transportation providers comes in. Obviously, shippers have to choose a carrier that's going to pick up and deliver consistently on time and in good condition. So key metrics are on-time pickup, on-time delivery, claims ratio, and so forth. Those are really table stakes, if you will, and they're typically pretty readily available through the industry. Beyond that, though, it's important to understand that carrier relationship with the retailer, right? They approved or preferred. Do they live unload or do they drop trailers? Are they connected electronically for appointment scheduling? I mean, let's face it, some retailers are challenging to deliver to, and so it's important to partner with carriers that know how to sort of navigate those challenges. I would say go digital to the extent that you can. Make those digital connections with your carrier so that data and information flows smoothly, sort of streamline the shipping process, reduce errors, and sort of allow for precision tracking and accountability. Work with a carrier that has a good track record, long experience doing time and window-based shipping, and a carrier that's resilient enough to deal with the unexpected, because in shipping there will always be the unexpected, particularly this time of year as we record this, just coming off a major snowstorm that affected most of the country. And work with a carrier that has a robust digital receipt system that you have access to. Incorrect fines, chargebacks, and so forth happen from time to time. And so you need to be able to quickly verify that your load arrived on time in full so that you can dispute those incorrect fees and charges when they have to. It's important for the shipper's relationship with their customer, the retailer, to get that extra shelf space, or it even comes down to negotiating price between a shipper and a retailer. So all those things are pretty important when you think about what carrier to trust your shipment with.
Yeah, I've heard of the shelf positioning before. Your scorecard can impact if you're on the bottom or right there in the middle. And so there's lots of things that I'm sure actually does have a big impact on even companies' revenue if they're not maintaining those scorecards. Also, remembering times we were in retail transportation and you wouldn't think it would happen, but we'd get asked to, as an LTL provider, to go in and recover a shipment from in transit and say, well, where are we picking it up from? Is it a shipper or receiver? No, it was another LTL carrier's dock because it ended up getting shipped with a provider who wasn't approved or preferred with a retailer. And I think that happens more times than we realize because shippers are constantly growing and expanding their retail footprint. That's the goal. They'd like to break into new markets, but then there's a learning curve when you do. And so making sure that you're careful with your partner selection and looking into who is preferred, who is approved by these retailers. So there's a lot of pre-planning that comes with, unfortunately, not just your first step into retail, but each additional retail partner you continue to partner with requires careful planning and partnerships.
Very true.
Chris, I would have to imagine that there's probably a lot of added pressure when MABD shipments run into challenges like a snowstorm that Greg just mentioned, or some type of weather event or disruption outside of the norm. So what processes or tools do carriers generally put into place to mitigate for any unexpected slowdowns that might cause delays for these shipments?
Well, any of these shipments, especially, we have a specialized program for that. So these shipments are individually tracked. And the key is to know when you really need to deliver it. You have that window, then that can give you some flexibility, honestly, in these weather delays. You might have a multi-day window or a morning or afternoon type window. So that allows us, if we know when that delivery is scheduled up front, if we've pre-planned that and are proactive at putting that in the system, it allows us to move it so that it hits those spots. MABD shipments, any type of special delivery requirement shipment is moved with a priority in most carrier systems. I know it is in ours. And so that way we're able to make those weather issues or traffic issues, or even there's times where we're supposed to pick up a shipment on a specific day and the shipper doesn't have it ready yet. We have the ability to be flexible and to be able to meet those needs to still make it there within those window that's needed due to some of the various services that we offer. So while it can be challenging, we do it every day. The key is to partner with the carrier with a robust level of services that can give you options when something unexpected happens, like Greg talked about before. There will always be production delays, weather delays. You cut your teeth in LTL. If there's one thing about freight, it's uncertainty. You can't control the weather. You can't control these external factors. So you have to be able to adapt and recover and have that 99% on-time delivery to make sure your scorecard isn't affected.
Yeah, I did. I cut my teeth in LTL operations in Kansas City. And like last month, they shut down every highway in the state of Kansas for extreme blizzard conditions. And I was very grateful that I have since removed myself from freight operations because I'm sure that was a stressful couple of weeks.
Yeah, I remember looking at our weather map. We have a large weather map here that all the highway conditions, and they were all red. Yeah, but I know the day you refer to.
I have one other question I'd like to ask you guys. Well, I probably have a couple more, but let's. Can I ask for some examples? Do you guys have any stories maybe or examples you can share of customers who have had to transition to abiding by MABD restrictions? What helped them with these transitions, and just any takeaways from these experiences you've watched shippers kind of evolve through stepping into the space of having to navigate retail with MABDs?
Yeah, there are any number of stories we could share without naming names. You touched on something earlier about rescuing shipments, that are stuck with another carrier or whatever the case may be. Those happen often for us. We have a preferred position with most of the major retailers. And so those are sort of pretty commonplace for us, where we are asked to sort of save a shipment, if you will. We literally hear stories and conversations with customers every day about the change that their scorecards, the improvements their scorecards have made after signing on with our MABD program. The thing that sticks out to me, and I guess a change that I've really noticed over the last few years, is that it seemed in the beginning, when Walmart first kicked this thing off and then others began jumping on board with MABD, it seemed that the people we're dealing with, or the carrier decision makers, were not necessarily aware of the fines and chargebacks or even the scorecard that they were receiving. It seemed to be the sales and marketing teams at these shippers that you were dealing with these fines and having these conversations with the retailers. That has changed and we're continuing to change. I think now they realize it's not just the price on a freight bill, the carrier decision makers, that is the total cost of transportation, which includes obviously any fines that they might pay. I mean, some of these fines can be 3 to 5% of the cost of the goods or what the shipper sold to the retailer. And so that eats into their margins considerably. So I have seen that sort of evolve over time, where the decision makers that we deal with are now fully aware, for the most part, of the importance of scorecards and the impact of chargebacks and fines on their bottom line.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I was actually thinking about that a little bit earlier, how this isn't just something that stays confined to transportation teams. MABD dates have a huge effect on sales teams, account management teams that are actually holding these relationships with these retailers. You know, even if there's a promotion and they want to get in some type of seasonal product from you and do some type of rollout or extra, sale, they're going to come and ask the sales. They're talking to sales, and sales is like, they're promising, they're making commitments to deliver, X amount of goods by X amount of dates in these locations. And that's all wrapped into their project. And then if transportation doesn't deliver, there is a problem, right? But transportation doesn't get the phone call from Walmart. It goes to sales, it goes to leadership. And so it is something that needs increased visibility outside of just transportation. I think as an industry, we're evolving more with that. And then also, excellent point on the fines. For many years, that was not something that was allocated back to transportation. On time delivery fines were lumped in with other fines that were difficult to even allocate to where the errors were coming up. And that can be a really, especially for, shippers who are kind of breaking into this space maybe, or new markets with retailers, that can be a tough thing to do, to allocate where those fines are coming from and get to the bottom of it. But it's definitely a worthwhile task to help figure out where you can improve. Do you have any thoughts on that, Chris?
You're spot on. One of the things that we see regularly is, to your point, doing the research up front and realizing this is part of the entire cost of transportation, the entire cost of the product. It doesn't do you any good to say, hey, I can sell my product to a large retailer for X dollars, and I'm going to throw my normal cost of transportation on that. That's Y. When we all know in these types of situations, it's not, your normal cost of transportation. It's normal cost of transportation plus, due to the complexities of those MABD type requirements, no matter what they call it, right? RAD, MABD, OTIF, whatever it is, there's additional requirements. So we see this many times where we're getting folks coming to us the second time around who kind of learned their lesson of, hey, we tried to quote this out and run this in our normal LTL channel. It did not work. We're at risk of losing this project or not getting this project again next year, not continuing with the sale. And they're losing money on it because it was priced some way that didn't fit with what the actual cost of transportation truly is in the marketplace, no matter what carrier you use. So, having great conversations with your carrier up front about what are really the operational requirements, what are really the types of deliveries that you're looking at. Are you able to do this as part of a normal some of these customers will allow you to drop trailers in normal course of business, but they don't necessarily have all their shipments as MABD shipments. Some of their shipments may be just normal arrivals, and others are MABD type, required arrival type shipments. And you are often not able to mix those on a trailer. So you have different delivery requirements. There's things that you have to look at to make sure you know what your total cost of goods will be, including transportation, in order to, keep that promise to your customer.
While I have you two gentlemen, I'd love to know what you think about as we move into the future. Do you think we will be seeing more or less of MABDs? The feeling probably more, but do you foresee any changes coming, any type of innovations or anything that we should be thinking about as we look into the future of retail supply chains?
I think you're right. I think there'll be more and not less of this sort of MABD delivery window type shipments as we go forward. I think it's likely that things digitize even more and companies adopt tighter and tighter inventory standards and stock management practices. So I think we can expect a nice long runway with this concept. And honestly, I think it bodes really well for a carrier like Old Dominion. It's been a focus for us for a long time, and we've gotten pretty good at it. I'm actually excited to see things further, progress on this front. And as Chris was speaking, it reminded me of something. I mean, in an LTL world where we deliver multiple shipments to a particular vendor, the requirements are different, even within different departments or different types of commodities within retailers, right? So that presents a challenge for shippers and for carriers just to understand what those requirements are. It might be that, as Chris alluded to earlier, it might be that not every shipment requires MABD level service and attention. Just really can depend, what department they're selling into. And so, again, back to it really is important for shippers to choose a carrier that knows how to navigate these challenges, that has the relationships with all the major retailers, and the flexibility. It's also a term that Chris mentioned earlier. I think it really comes into play here.
And especially as the economy picks back up here, warehouse space, yard space at these DCs will get more constrained. And so I think that will continue the push towards more MABD, turning the goods in that warehouse quicker, turning their trailers on the yard quicker, so they don't have to go out and get more warehouse space for the additional goods coming through. So I think this definitely will continue to grow as we see a stronger economy here in the next couple of years.
Yeah. And I think you brought up economics. I'll just add this a little bit too, because that's an area I love. I think we went through an interesting transition over the last few years where we had this just-in-time inventory model, and then COVID made people adopt a just-in-case inventory model, and that didn't go so well for some balance sheets after that kind of the buying fell a little shorter than the inventory stocking had, and retailers were under a lot of public scrutiny to work through that. And so now we're kind of, I don't know where we're at exactly. I wouldn't say we're fully back to a just-in-time, but I would say that I think it re-emphasized and why they want to hold to an MABD type of structure and continue to advance and hopefully improve that too as they learn more about it. But it's very important for these retailers to be careful with what type of inventory they're holding, how fast they're turning product. And so I think there's some good intentions there, right? And what they're trying to accomplish. I don't think MABD dates were set out to be a terrible thing. I think it brings kind of organization to what could otherwise be a chaotic space when they're incentivizing compliance. But it becomes the job of any good vendor or customer partner to figure out how to help achieve those requirements that are set out.
Yep. Samantha, I think the pendulum is swinging back and will continue to as the economy recovers and capacity tightens in our industry and in the retail, within the retailers' warehouses. We're heading, I think, back in the direction of tightening standards. And so if I could offer some advice to a shipper that's looking to, that's selling into retailers, just communicate with your carrier early and often, and really as you're planning your production, if you see changes in the production schedules, really communicate that kind of information to your carrier so that they are able to plan. And I think everybody will be more successful with better sharing of information. And the idea is for us at least, is to make sure that our customers, the shippers, are successful. We want them to be able to sell more and more to these retailers. It's just good for everybody. And so communicate early and often. We'll do the same, and I think together we'll all win.
The importance of early data, electronic data, getting us, the orders going out, the load, the files, so that we can plan ahead as business picks up and inventories, tighten up. It's more critical than ever. Then we get the product out there, and the more advanced notice, even the same day, that we can get, as opposed to just finding out what's on that drop trailer when we go pick it up and find out it's an MABD date that has a short window on it. You're spot on, Greg. It's critical they communicate.
Yeah, that the holy grail there is really the electronic bill of lading that flows right into our billing and rating systems. And even more importantly than that, or earlier than that, I guess, is right into our planning systems, right?
Which is in and of itself a newer advancement, is it not? The electronic bill of lading, that's come about in the last several years?
Yeah, it's really taken off in the last several years with the standards.
Yeah, we're talking with all our customers about it. It's super important for our planning. And, we're able to load more directs, reduce handling, improve on-time performance, and all the good things that flow from early data.
Yeah. If you are a shipper listening, I would just love to give a little piece of advice here myself. Reach out to Greg or Chris on LinkedIn and say, hey, you said something I don't know everything about. I want to know everything about that. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for being here with me today. I think I'm going to have to wrap this up, but I could talk MABD dates all day if you let me. So,
yeah,
me too.
Yeah,
it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, the pleasure has been mine. Thank you both. And thank you for listening. If you want to learn more about must arrive by dates, be sure to visit odfl.com/OD Outlook to read OD's guidance on the topic, how to handle must arrive by dates with precision. While you're visiting the OD Outlook section of the Old Dominion Freight Line website, be sure to download OD's most recent white paper, How a New Generation of Data Analytics is Reshaping Shipping, to stay up to date on key trends with insights on the state of global supply chains and how shifts in sourcing have brought manufacturing closer to home. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to check out our full Cargo Shorts podcast series. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, SoundCloud, and YouTube Music. You can also leave us a comment on Spotify. Please rate and review, share with your colleagues, or drop us an email at marketing@odfl.com. Visit the OD Outlook section of the Old Dominion Freight Line website at odfl.com/OD Outlook, where you can find additional information on this topic. Thanks for listening.